Good day, and this is a video to discuss the upcoming essay that's due in a couple of days. We'll make sure we go over some details for you, make sure that you review the material that's been posted, and make sure you understand what you need to do for the assignment. This is the home page, of course, so when you go to the modules, you can click here, or you can, of course, go to the listing here, either way, but we're going to go to the modules. So when you look here, you will see the different ones, including how to access the material. The previous video showed you how to do that. And then under the short stories unit, you of course have your first daily assignment that was due a couple of days ago, and you folks have turned that in. It's been graded. Second daily assignment that's due. This is being recorded on the 5th, so this is due by this evening. And so hopefully you've gotten that one prepared, ready to turn in. If you will, of course, look at this video, that'll probably help you with the second daily assignment. You see some other PowerPoint, a couple of commentaries about Rose Ramley, which you don't have to worry about. Good Man is hard to find. The story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, is an additional story. It's posted here, and then you have a critical article over that. And then, of course, you see the essay over short stories. So when you open that one, you have, get the wrong one. You'll see this one, and so when you scroll down below this, you'll see, let me have to renew this one. Occasionally that happens. I had it open for a little while. So when you scroll down, you'll see this, and you click on it, and it takes you to turn it in. And there's not going to be anything there for you to look at this time. This is just how it looks for me, because there's not anything there at this time. So when you click on this particular one, this is what you will see. I'm going to get over here. And so again, the actual assignment is listed here. And the key parts that you need to pay attention to is that this is a literary analysis, which of course means that you're looking at a particular work, or the other topic gives you works. You can choose a couple of works. You're focused in upon an idea that is important after you've read the story and gone through it. Something should have struck you about it, we hope. The one you're going to write about. You need to have a good sound thesis, a statement of purpose. We're going to go over that in just a moment. Your supportive paragraphs that come through to help support this thesis. Utilizing evidence, because as you write a literary analysis, the critical essay that you're doing, it is, of course, an argument where you're arguing. You're trying to explain a point that you've noticed about the story. You're doing an analytical discussion, and you're building within the essay. You're following MLA format, which means you're going to have paragraphs similar to what you're seeing here. It's going to be double spaced, similar to what you're seeing here in this handout. There is no outside research. Please make sure you do not go to any other sources. I just need you to write your argued view about the particular one. You're looking at ideas and details. You have offering a critical approach, which is not a summary. You're not telling me the story again. You, of course, are not going to use any AI generation. That is not allowed. Plagiarism is not allowed in any form. And so what you're looking at, you're going to select one of these two topics. First one, they're basically the same topic. One tells you to look at one story. The second topic allows you to do a comparison. Again, you're looking at key points, features. It may be that you want to talk about symbolism. Maybe you want to talk about characterization. If you're looking at, for instance, the story by Hemingway, you might want to do a character analysis of the girl, Jig, and discuss what it is that she represents. Why is Hemingway presenting as that kind of girl, that kind of figure? She's called the girl in the story. So you are looking along those lines. It may be that you want to talk about symbolism. Again, in Hills Like White Elephants, there's quite a number of symbols in that story that you can utilize. When you do your daily assignment over that story, I sort of get you to think along those lines. The daily assignments that you've done so far, such as the first one over Story of an Hour by Chopin, ask you to look at key feature, irony, and just identify, knowing that this is irony. This is the kind of irony it is, and you have three kinds. You have verbal, dramatic, or situational. Cosmic irony is really, as it says in the back of your book, a type of situational irony. So you were asked to look at that. Then the next one was asked you to think about how a character is being used, the character of Richards, and why he does certain action. He only appears at the beginning of the story and at the end of the story. So why is he even mentioned? Does he really need to be there? Well, he does something. And as you look at that one, why is it appropriate he jumps in front to shield any view of Brentley? Well, he's the one who made the mistake. If you go back to the story, you'll see how it's phrased. Said that he had only taken the time. He had hastened. And so you gain this impression that he was in such a rush to get to the house to tell people. He wanted to be the first one there before some other person could show up. And it implies that he's in a rush to get there. That he really didn't take the time to determine, was the report accurate? And so when Brentley walks in, Richards is confronted with his error, his rush, and he's going to try to cover it up. He jumps in front of Brentley to cover that mistake up. Yes, it's because, there's the fact that everybody, the understanding is that Mrs. Mallard has the heart issue, but it's also Richards who's doing that. That's mentioned. It doesn't say that Josephine tries to shield her. It's Richards. So you have to pay attention to details. One of the major details occurs in the very first sentence of that story, for instance. It says, knowing that Mrs. Mallard had a heart trouble. And it's not had heart trouble, had heart problems. No, it's a heart trouble. And that A is very important. It indicates that there's more than one kind of trouble that she could possibly have. And so you are given the indication early in this story that the trouble she has with her heart is physical, but goes beyond that. Which is why the death of her husband is so important to Mrs. Mallard, what it represents for her. And so you have suddenly a change there, and that one A in the first sentence is important. And you have to pay attention to details. As you go through a story, especially one that small, that short, pay attention to the details. You have to look for those key features. You have to look for those to recognize that there's something going on, that the author has intention. So you're looking for these features. So you're going to choose a feature. It could be setting, it could be irony, it could be symbolism, whatever the theme, which will probably tie back into several things. So you're looking at one story. Or if you want to do a comparison of stories for a particular aspect, for instance, if you're going to look at the theme of relationships, well, you could look at Hills Like White Elephants. You could look at The Story of an Hour and discuss how those two stories present relationships. You could look at one of the other stories you were asked to read, The Birthmark, which also focuses on relationships as is conveyed with Almer and Georgiana. You might want to look at the stories of O'Connor that are in that one chapter, and you have 3 of those stories by her, and you might want to choose 2 of them, where you're going to talk a little bit about maybe hypocrisy. That's a major aspect in her writing. She looks at people who seem to be hypocritical about their beliefs and their attitudes. And so you might want to look at that aspect. If you go through I'm going to go back to the module here. Let me go back over here. If you go back to this module, and I'll leave this one open, I had for you a video over A Good Man is Hard to Find, and that's this one here that was done by Professor Laced, where he looks at the story and talks about 6 different possible theses, statements of that you could use to write an essay, all over this one story. And he looks at the grandmother, the character of the grandmother, in one way, but you could also look at her in the very opposite way. He looks at several different aspects along those lines. So you can look at that story and look at some details there, where it also talks about some major themes, and maybe apply it to A Good Man's, beyond A Good Man is Hard to Find. Look at the other one, Good Country People, where you have some other aspects where characters are presented and relationships are offered. So there's some things you can look at. And so you're going to choose one of these 2, either looking at only one story or looking at 2. And it does say 2 stories, so you don't have to write about more than 2. You're going to look at the same aspect. If you choose number 2 here and write about 2 stories, you're going to look at irony maybe in more than one story. Or you're going to look at symbolism, how symbolism is used in one story, how it's used in another story, and then discuss how symbolism is maybe more strongly used and argue that. And so that's what you're going to be looking at. And what I want to go back to now is one of the earlier modules that you were asked already gone through about the writing process and writing about literature. And this particular one looks at the literary analysis essay and how to write it. This is done from Bucks County, and it offers a key aspect that it requires you to break down a subject into component parts, looking at the different elements. It asks you to analyze, for instance, a short story, maybe a theme, transition from adolescence to adulthood, the challenge to relationships, whatever. And you're going to look at how it's told, how it's revealed, what it's offered, attitude toward women, or whatever. And so you're going to look at this as a sharp, focused expression. It is asking you to use critical abilities. You're trying to convince the reader that the idea you're supporting is a good detail. That means this is an argument. You want to make sure you have a central idea expressed in a thesis. You have several paragraphs, and folks, we're going to look at the example essay in a moment. Paragraph, that means hit the tab button for every paragraph. Do not write a block, and do not put extra lines between your paragraphs. Have everything double spaced. And then, of course, everything has to relate to the idea you're trying to develop. As it goes on here, I'm trying to get this to move, and it didn't want to. There we go. Okay. Your thesis. And I'll have to just do this like this one then. There we go. The idea is that you need a very carefully conceived thesis, because otherwise you're not going to have a good foundation. They give you some ideas how a thesis can sound. The introduction, what needs to be in it, how you can express that, look at it. Again, you can read these examples. I'm not going to do that. Build your body paragraphs, multiple paragraphs, and how they should be involved. And your conclusion is not simply restating the introduction, but making your final point. How to title your essay, what it should be. Don't just put the title of the short story. You didn't write that one. Rather, you need to have a title that will express your point, your idea. You're going to use evidence from the story. They're calling here textual evidence. When you quote directly, you will make sure that you give citations. And you'll see how that's done here. See the page number that's offered. And you'll see how all those are indicated. Again, you'll see page numbers here. In the case of the online text, sometimes page numbers are not easily recognized. That's okay. Just put the parentheses, the last name of the author, close parentheses, put your period. And again, you'll see how they use the quotes and details. You can read through this one. And again, here's how they have, it says that the change was like a lion. And they had the page number. You would just put the last name of the author there. And then your close your parentheses, put your period. And so here's a checklist for you to look at. Make sure you've done everything you need to. And make sure that you've proofread everything that you need to do. I also have for you up here, which hopefully you've already gone through, the thesis statement, what's involved in it, how a thesis needs to be. And so you have this, the details here. Let's go ahead and raise that up a little bit. It's the announcement of the argument you intend to make. It provides a roadmap for your essay. It gives an indication of what's going to take place and why you're doing it. They give an idea here about thesis, some different ones to look at. First one's not very good because it's not offering an argument. And again, argument is what literary analysis involves. You'll see different aspects here. And this is one they give through his contrasting river and shore scenes. Huck Finn suggests that to find the true expression of American ideals, one must leave civilized society and go back to nature, which is then going to go through Huckleberry Finn, the novel, and explain how that novel presents this idea. And that's where the argument is. The other one's here about Edgar Allan Poe, which is way too broad. By the way, I don't get to change these. This is from a different source, and the credits down here later. We're not dealing with Poe per se. You could write about the Black Cat. That's misspelled. It's Allan. Please make sure you spell the author's name correctly. Hemingway, for instance, has only one M. It's Hemingway. So this gives you some idea about what your thesis needs to be, how it needs to be expressed, how it should be developed. And this is from Brian Yothers. As I said, there's the credit. And he goes into another, what exactly is literary analysis? What's it supposed to be? It's an argument. It's going to look at the text. That means the story for this essay. It's going to look at details. It's going to offer a view, where you focus on a specific attribute or feature, as I call it. We're going to discuss that one. We're going to defend it with reason and evidence from the text, from the story. And give you some other examples here of what you can look at. And so this gives you an idea of what your thesis should sound like and what you are expected to do for this particular essay. I have, again, an example essay over the short stories here for you to look at. This was done a few years ago. I'm going to raise it up just a little bit. Where it looks at a short story called The Dead by James Joyce. This is a solid essay. It's not a great one, but it does what's needed to be done. It offers a view here about the main character. And it says he uses the main character and his restlessness in order to make a point where, again, this character finds himself in an unfamiliar state between what was and what is to come. And so then it goes into look at details of the story, knows how it's the last name and the page number. This is how you do a citation. Over here it goes on further about this as well. Now this one is a lengthy quote, but it's going to take more than 3 lines. You block it. You don't use the quotation marks. Those are unnecessary. I did not fix this one. I just have permission from the student to use it. So those quotation marks are not needed when you block, unless there's a quote within the block material. It also should be tabbed over one more time. And the period, when you block it, goes after the quoted material, not after the citation. But you'll see it goes on and looks at, again, the same situation with this blocked one. Details are offered. This one had extra line here. It didn't need to do that. I'm going to show you how to fix that one in a moment. But it does have the works cited page done correctly. Where it's the last name of the author, title of the story, the name of the book, which you'll notice that the title of the textbook goes in is italicized. There's the editor. This is from the 12th edition. Yours is a little bit different edition, so that would be changed, and the date would be changed as well. And the ebook, you have page numbers, but sometimes they can be hard to find, but you need to make sure that you do include your works cited page. So you have an example essay that you can look at. I have for you also, let's go back down to the short story unit. I have for you, again, an outline over the literary analysis, and that outline shows you ways that you need to structure it. In your introduction, you should have your thesis, that statement that's going to give the point you're trying to explain, to argue. And then you need to have your reasons. I list several different points here. I have 5 because they all fit on one page. You can have 3, you could have 6 or 7. Depends on how many reasons you come up with. But you want to have your reasons, your first major point. And then you want to have evidence from your story. So you put that in there. And then you also want to make sure you provide a citation for that information. Same situation, second major point, third major point, fourth major point, whatever. However many points you're going to have. This gives you an idea of how you can structure your essay to help build what you're going to write. And then again, going back to the module, I have for you some other sample essays, a couple of different ones here. So you can look at these. First one is Over the Story of an Hour, and this shows you some markings. This was submitted during a long semester when we actually had time for the students to submit the essay, have it marked, and then turn back in to be revised. So here you have this idea that the author uses irony, development of the main character, and symbolism. So this is looked at 3 different aspects in order to look at a theme that this person is trying to get across. Well, It says to keep you at the edge of your seat. Well, first of all, when you're writing in formal writing, you do not use the word you. You do not speak to the reader. You're not engaged in a conversation. You're offering a detailed discussion of the work. Do not use you. Secondly, do not rely on cliches, old expressions that have lost their impact. Again, here's the you, should not be used. I love the way the reader discovers the character. That has nothing to do. You don't use personal comments. State your point directly. If you're saying that the reader discovers the character as she is discovering herself, then say that. And so just offer it in that way. There are other aspects to it. This idea about the A heart trouble we were just talking about earlier. Here's details from the story. Quote, again, it just puts Chopin. You don't have to put the whole name. Just the last name is all that's needed. It shifts tense. It's been talked about in present tense and suddenly went to past tense. You don't do that. A comma splice is where you need a stronger punctuation mark, semicolon, perhaps. Again, past tense and back to present tense. Agreement, it talks about before the reader is able, they. Well, reader is a single, they is a plural. Folks, you don't get to do that. You cannot shift between the singular and plurals. If you wanted, for the readers are able to discover, that'd be a very easy fix. Again, looking at the details and how it's presented, there's some aspects. Again, you don't have to have Kate, just Chopin. This does Kate all the way throughout. It does a little too much plot at times, where it needs to have a little more. This expression here, excuse me, there we go. Do not announce your conclusion. Your conclusion should flow naturally from all the material before, and it should come as a natural ending of the essay. Do not use in conclusion in an essay. If you're giving a speech, it's fine, because your audience doesn't know you're about to end. In reading an essay, the reader will recognize the essay is over because there are no more words. Do not use in conclusion, or to sum up, or any expression along those lines. And again, avoid the use. At first you think she's just poor. No, I do not. Do not. I'm sorry. Do not try to tell the reader what to think or to do. So no addressing of you. It's not part of the writing. And then here's the works cited, which is not how it should be done. And then I just gave a little brief comment here. And so this gives you an idea how that one looks and what it did. And then here's a second sample essay. This one over a short story by Poe called The Cask of Amontillado. It looks at this idea about egotism can disable a person's ability to accurately construe reality. This one is not marked. This would be marked because that's a split infinitive. It's to construe accurately, not to accurately construe. So do not separate the infinitive verb to construe. And it looks at the story, demonstrates the demise of the character, full reasoning. This destructive egotism is played out in the tale through irony and symbolism. So it's looking at this theme of egotism, and it's going to look at some features that help to present that. In this case, irony and symbolism. It then goes on, looks at this idea about quotes from the story. It looks at some details. It says Montresor is dressed for the carnival, but he's described as putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a roquelaire. His mask acts as a symbol. He's masking, loosely, his true intentions. The images of the black silk and cape are a stark contrast to his dress as a court jester. The imagery establishes Montresor as a more serious figure and stereotypes Fortunato as a clown. So that's the analytical mark, looking at these two details. Now, one aspect here is that the period should have gone inside the quotation mark. So then it talks about his foolishness. His Fortunato being a clown, here's the transition. His foolishness is also due in part to his ego. He's lured based upon his connoisseurship of wine. It goads him, and again, you'll see the different aspects here. How it's quoted, using quotes from the story to pick out major aspects about Fortunato and what Montresor does and how he does it. It then goes on, looks about this idea as Montresor escorts Fortunato down the catacombs. He notes the gait of my friend was unsteady, which implies that Fortunato was tipsy. He turned toward me and looked into my eyes with two filmy orbs. Fortunato's unsteadiness is both physical and mental. His drunkenness has inhibited his ability to comprehend. Even as he backs him into the wall to be buried alive, he is too much astounded to resist. He shows concern for the Amontillado and he misinterprets the situation till alcohol wears off. And so you have this key aspect where this person is drawing from the story and discussing about the reality of being buried alive sobers him. But had he been sober, he would not have allowed himself to be led. The idea about Fortunato being foolish. So now, throughout the story, again, the comma here should have been inside the quotation mark. Poe demonstrates how destructive intoxication can be. The extreme state of being during carnival season is easy to slip into extreme behavior. Because Fortunato becomes drunk both with liquor and with ego, he remains blind to the reality. It's in his power the entire time to control his fortune, but his ego, his inebriation, continually get the best of it. The result is that he becomes a dense fool, and it costs him his life. So it is double-spaced. The details are here. And you'll see how everything is set up there, double-spaced. You'll see the sense of the paragraphs. See how it's tabbed over for paragraphs. So I have the little note for you to make sure that when you're writing your essay, everything is double-spaced. Here's the works cited page. Again, you'll see this is from a different textbook that we used differently a few years ago. You'll see how long ago that was. And so this gives you an idea of the way the story is used, the details from the story used to provide evidence. You look see how the whole story is set up as a discussion for egotism. And so you have this idea here that's offered for you. So the result is that we have a couple of different essays for you to look at to give you an idea how your essay should look. It gives you an idea of how to incorporate quotes from the story to support your points, how to argue an idea. So I have those set up there for you to look at. And then also, likewise, underneath the, I'm going to go back up here. The writing resources from Norton and MLA. Norton is your publisher. It gives you some details about little videos to watch to help you. When do I need my thesis? Where is my thesis? How the essay works? Using quotations. All that is part of what you can look at to help you understand a little bit more about how to approach your story. So those are provided by your publisher. Under the short story unit, of course, I have some videos that you can watch to help you understand about analysis. This one over A Rose for Emily gives you an idea of how to approach a story. This one is also looks at One's Walk Away from Home Loss, an additional story that you can use. It's not in the textbook. It used to be, but they took it out. But it's open resource. I put it in there so you can read that and use it. It's a really good story. Makes a really strong comment about society and choice. And this idea about what is done for the betterment of society and should we follow that. So again, you have how to revise it once you draft your essay. You have time to revise it. This is from the Writing Center at University of North Carolina. And if you just click on this, it'll take you to that. This is from their Writing Center. They allow us to use this. And so it gives you an idea about revision, what revising should be after you write your initial draft, and you get ready to revise it to turn in. It tells you how to do that. Again, it says we can use it so long as we attribute the source, and I do. So I have that up there for you to use and look at. And so that's something you can go through as you want to talk about revising your essays. You draft it once and go through it. Again, details for the essay is provided here with a handout to look at. Again, the essay should be about 800, 900 words. You can do an adequate job with that. You may find that you need more, though. In order to do a more developed, advanced writing, you may need to have a lengthier essay. So just keep that in mind. Again, you're trying to offer a deep appreciation and understanding of the particular work that you select. It means that you have to offer an analysis where you are arguing a view about the story, or if you do number 2, stories. gives you an idea of how to approach it. You're going to have your essay look similar to this. This is paragraph and double spaced. That's how yours should look. If you submit your essay through Google Drive, be very careful. You'll note up here in the, if I can get this to move back up, this idea about submitting through Google Drive can be very difficult because sometimes when you submit from Google Drive directly to Turnitin, the format changes. So please be very careful. My suggestion is that you download it from Google Drive to save on your computer, check to make sure the format is accurate, and then submit directly from your computer to Turnitin. The way that you submit, of course, is the same as you did the other two assignments. And I'm going to refresh that one more time. So again, you just scroll down below the assignment, you'll see the gray bar, and you go from there. Again, I'm looking forward to reading your assignments and your essay. So please make sure that you do have your assignment over Hills Like White Elephants submitted. Make sure that gets done. Here's the second daily assignment. And again, it's offered here. Ask you to look at some key points, connection. Again, look at the story. Pay attention to what's going on. Look what is offered. Think about the details. Pay attention to the words. Hotels where they spent nights, and that becomes important to deal with that. And the idea about labels and how that reflects about the relationship that these two share, the American and Jig, or the girl as she's called. So again, you're looking at those. That'll help you to develop some analytical skills as you're getting ready to write your essay. So again, I'm looking forward to reading your essay, looking forward to some details from you. And I know if you have any issues, you can email me, and I'll try to get back in touch with you as fast as I can. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close this off now. And I'll get this posted, send a notice out that this has been posted. This is going to be posted under the short story unit.